So, Worshipper, I mean, a great band. Everybody knows it. Philly legendary sort of stuff. Everybody who really cares knows about it. And like, I know you guys have known each other for a long time. You knew Mike for a long time, but how did Worshipper form? Like, what spawned it?
Sure. I think it pretty much started when Mike and I were in Chamomile, just two-piecing around, and Chamomile got a little bit boring after a while. Mike had problems like writing vocals and like lyrics for everything, and we had started sort of playing a little bit more heavy. We have that Lost album that half kind of came out on Faux Fetus or whatever. That was like good stuff, but definitely heading in like a different direction that we just never finished. But Mike and I started listening to Slayer. I remember specifically Slayer. It's like we're, I don't know, like 18 and being like, yeah, let's give Slayer a shot. Yeah, we were like, just like getting into like riffing and just like having fun with all that. So we started the Riffingtons, which was the Chamomile joke band, joke metal band, where we just sat around and we actually just went to the dojo, the original Sex Dungeon, Dan and James's old recording studio in Germantown. And we pretty much just sat down. Like the idea for the day was we asked Dan to just be around, have us mic'd with his digital 8-track. And whenever we called him in, he would just come in and hit record. And then when we were done, he would hit stop or whatever. So he was just like on standby. And Mike and I just sat there and wrote and recorded everything. Like no ideas beforehand, just like came up with riffs, little funny metal riffs, and just did that. We did 2 albums like that. So yeah, that was like sort of like the beginning of it all, was just like this funny joke riff band, which ended up like stewing in Mike's brain for years.
Were, it was like, I don't know, it seemed carefree and totally random. Like you guys, like it's like you had been playing together for years. And I feel like, I don't know, Eat may have had a bunch of other participants, but I think that was one sort of offshoot of Chamomile where you were like cutting loose a little bit from the pressure of writing and performing Chamomile songs. And then Riffingtons was like the other side of that. Totally.
Yeah, it was like Chamomile in the middle, Eat was on one side, just totally stupid. And then the Riffingtons were like totally stupid, but in a completely different way.
Yeah. I was blown away by the Riffingtons though. And I feel like you guys were just like, oh, this is a joke. And I was like, no, this is the best band.
Those songs are still pretty funny. I should get Chris to remaster those. I don't have any of those tracks. Those don't exist anymore.
I mean, somebody must have a CD somewhere,
Maybe. I do somewhere. I've got all of our CDs came out on 3-inch CDs. And they were, the first one I think was called 3 Inches of Pain. They were all dick jokes. That's also the other thing, is that the Riffingtons had a bunch of dick jokes along with it. And not everybody knows this, but the first version of Worshipper was actually going to be called Dick Worshipper. And that was Mike's idea, not my idea. And I think that's true. But yeah, he wanted to call it.
I may have proposed Devil Worshipper, but it was too on the nose and like too like, typical satanic metal. And I think it's just like, no, Dick Worshipper, which was obviously way better. But then, we had to censor ourselves a little bit.
Right.
It's true.
It's a little bit. I think that comes through in the subtext for sure. like there are, let me see, there's a lot of, so there's several themes throughout Binge and Purge in LA and Worshiper as a band, like you just mentioned, like satanic worship or metal themes, that kind of stuff. But one theme that really keeps coming up over and over again is the pig. So, Mike had the pig on his mic. He sings about it a lot. Like, did he ever explain to you? Did you ever come to understand why he was fixated on the pig?
Oh man, I have my theories. I never. It was just, I don't recall it being discussed. I think it was just like part of this like ever evolving image that Mike had for everything. Like, for example, like when we were coming up with album art, I think we shared all this, like all the different weird iterations that I found. I was actually like, Mike drew the pig with the apple in its mouth, giving it to like presumably the girl pig. Does she have like a bow? I think there's a bow. And like I was just like confused, right? Like, but again, Worshiper was so much more Mike's vision, right? Before we recorded or played a show, there was no talk about doing any of this stuff. Like, I had to beg him on the week of my birthday. He asked me, what do you want? What do you want for your birthday? And I was like, can we record the Worshiper album? Like, can we just do that? Can that be my birthday present? And he was like, oh yeah, sure. What? Yeah. Okay. Like it was just like, Mike just needed to put this music out or whatever. So like, I mean, a pig is a proxy of that. Like we spent a year just like talking about like tone, like getting louder, like remember all the light placement conversations, Benji, where Mike just got the cans, like the can lighting, and was like, I'm going to put one here. And like, he was like very honed in on like, this is like, all of this stuff is like, this vision that I have, but he didn't really
like a larger performance that he was concerned about, and like image, I think that was, I don't know if that was apparent to me that that's not what would have evolved, but like at a certain point where it was like, oh yeah, like we're getting into like more of a production, low budget production, but it was still kind of production.
It's like Kiss.
The way that I see that though is that like, it didn't really start like that. Like Mike felt it was like a very serious band, and it was very seriously something that he wanted to do. But I think in lieu of ever wanting to actually do anything live or even record it, I think the band just sort of got into this loop where we were just getting tighter and tighter and practicing every single week. And there was like something missing, right? Like it was like, we're not doing this for any reason other than just like, we're hanging out every week, just fucking getting better and better. And so like, without Mike, like, oh, we got to go play a show, or like, I have to write lyrics for this other song, or like whatever, like we had everything locked in. So it was like, like, where does a band go from here? And Mike kind of like sucked it internally and just kind of kept refining or whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We never actually brought the pig's blood, like a la Carrie, into a performance, but that was like, we had discussed that many times.
What was that? Yeah, there was the whole fucking pig's blood thing. We talked about doing that so much. Like, holy shit, I totally forgot about. Like, we had the butcher shop picked out. Like,
I think we had like worked out a lot of the logistics already. I think I don't know where we got gun shy with that, but
probably just having a bunch of pig's blood. Like, I don't think we really had like a delivery system. I think that was like really it. It's like, what if we just had a bucket of pig's blood?
Had we been invited to play like a proper venue where like our friends weren't involved and they were a money-making organization or something, I think we would have just fucking done it, and that would have been great.
No,
but we're playing our friends' basements and stuff like that.
Yeah, you don't want to make them clean it up. I mean, maybe an outdoor festival or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. When you like, here's a question number 3. When you look back on your tour with Bad History Month, at the time they were Fat History Month, like, what do you think are your top, like, or best / maybe some worst memories that you have from going on that tour? Because it was how many days?
3. We did a 3-day tour. I think we played less than 10 shows.
Altogether.
And that's including the tour. Yeah. So for like 2 years of like weekly practice, we just did 10 shows and that was about it. I think it's much less than 10. The way that I remember is like we played in Philly 3 times and we went on tour. And then somebody's like, don't you remember that other worshiper show? And I'm like, not at all. So I have to say it's between 6 and 10. But that tour was weird. I mean, it was weird. It was weird in the fact that like we were just like a heavy band, like the heaviest band, you know, that I've been in, and just being like, yeah, we're gonna go out, you know, with Fat History Month, you know, like it was like a no-brainer. And then like I think we got to Binghamton, New York, and it was like, oh, this is kind of weird, you know, like it's like, you know, all the kids are just like hanging out. They like all Fat History Month booked it. They all knew Fat History Month or whatever, and like we came and played, and everybody loved it, and it was just like a really good time. Our friend Mark came on that tour too.
That was kind of
Rachel came too, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And James. It was Dan, James, me, you, Mike, Mark, and Rachel.
It was like a ragtag bunch of like folks, really.
Yeah, like Mark had never been on a tour before, and he just wanted to go on a tour, and like he's very experiential, so he's like, you know, like this would be a great experience. So
I mean, he was an unlikely friend, honestly. I don't think he had any prior experience with like punk metal, anything remotely like that. So
right.
He's a trooper for just being like, yeah, I'll try this out.
I remember he used to come to all of our practices, didn't he? Like,
yeah.
He came to every one of them. Like he was always there. I remember, yeah, for like that whole year, like Mark was there like most of the time.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah. Probably.
Weird. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to answer, that's jogging a memory, the answer to one of the questions around like one of the worst feelings, aside from maybe post that or maybe pre, I don't know, knowing Mike was not clean probably on that tour. That's a bad memory in hindsight, but a more like, I don't know, specific thing was knowing that like Mark, who was like, it was crazy that he went on that anyway. He had to like hear me like stay up all night drinking and arguing with people at the what was it, the New Florida? Was that what that house was called?
The New Hawaii.
New Hawaii, sorry. The Florida Equals Death was the band that lived there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I got that crossed. But yeah. I felt bad for Mark because he said something to me like that he was clearly annoyed that he didn't also get sleep because I was awake arguing with strangers all night long about something. Lots of things. But the hangover after that was like really brutal. I was only revived by the sandwich.
Wait, what was the sandwich?
Egg and cheese on a Kaiser.
Oh yeah, in Southington?
Yeah.
Yeah, at that place that was right next to like the Elks Lodge or the Masonic Temple or whatever. That old guy that just
I was like dead in the van.
Oh, yeah, we got it for you. Got it.
Yeah, I was really then I was revived enough we got to Montclair, New Jersey, where one of my favorite memories is that Dan and James were offered a kneeler by the elder Dan and James that we met at the Meat Locker. It was like 2 dudes running this venue, and they were like the 20 years older version of Dan and James, maybe 30. And they were connected with them, and they're like, you want this kneeler?
Yeah, they had a Catholic church kneeler like with them at the venue, and they gave it to us. And Mike had this whole image of like the band, like Pig's Blood, got the pig puppet microphone. Everything sounds like this. Here are the lights. And then Mike gets presented with this kneeler on the last day of our tour, and he fucking lost it. Like he was like, I need to figure out a way. I got the mic on there and I'm kneeling the whole time that we're playing. And like, other people can come up and like kneel in front of us, like it was in perfect shape. It was like, I remember it needed like some upholstery work, but we gave it to James, and James was supposed to reupholster it. They probably still have it. I'm sure it's around somewhere. If we can find it in Philly before the show, we have to bring it to the show.
Bring that out. Yes.
Yeah.
People will come up and kneel before worship.
Worked until like 8 when I dropped them off at summer camp and went back to sleep.
Oh,
but it didn't work. Naps never work. So, but I do have a good and bad memory. So the best one is probably like going on to that tour was pretty validating. Like again, we went out, it was Fat History Month. We played one place that we'd never been to before that they booked and kind of killed it. And then we went to the New Hawaii, which was, we always went to New Hawaii anytime we could. And that was just awesome to just be like with all our friends and like show them, the new shit we've been working on, and everybody loved it. But then we played Montclair, New Jersey with a bunch of like teenage metal, like speed metal bands. And I was like, holy shit. It was like, this is like it, like this is like, if anybody fucking gives a shit, like that fucking means something, like these are kids. They're all fucking like getting blackout drunk. They have handles of liquor and they're like hiding from the two old dudes who like didn't really care, but they don't want the cops there or whatever, just to get fucking shithoused in like the corner of the place. Every time you turned around, there's like the meat locker's like, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's like it is an old like meat storage facility that they turned into like a metal venue. And there's like all these like little weird alcoves and stuff like that. And like every one of them was packed with kids just getting hammered.
Yeah.
But yeah, we fucking killed that show. Like everybody loved it. Like the two guys that ran it were like, you guys are like, we don't get bands like you guys around here anymore. And like, old punk dudes just like really enjoying it. So
yeah, that was definitely a proving ground. I feel like the first two venues were like, all right, these are friends of friends or friends, direct
right.
friends. And it's like, all right, we all kind of know each other. They're just like there and they'll be like, oh, then your new stuff's cool. But these were like people that were like, oh, they don't know us.
Right.
I think.
And they were like true metalheads. Like, because I know you said already that like originally Worshipper was going to be a metal band, right? That was like the original idea. I mean, like, there's definitely metal elements. It's definitely sludge. There's all kinds of, it ticks pretty much almost all the boxes, but it's definitely not traditional. Like,
right.
What kind of caused, or I don't know, why are you not a fucking straight up metal band? Like why
I guess
the way it is?
I don't know. I don't think any of us could ever classify ourselves as metal in any sort of regard. Like, it's like, I think it takes like, I don't even know what it takes. Like you meet metal bands. I met this black metal band in Iceland when Heavy Medical played Airwaves, and I saw them play and I was scared, like actually terrified to the core, like robes, smoke, orange. Everything was orange lights. It was fucking terrifying. And then I met them backstage and they're like, hey, I'm super excited to play with you, sweetest fucking German people I've ever met in my life. And so like, I don't know what it takes to be a metal person, but like, like I'm not it. And like, like Mike was never, hyper into metal or anything like that, but just like, we wanted to be heavy and punishing. So, he wanted it to be heavy and punishing. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if any of us were truly interested in trying to be like, all right, we are lifelong heshers and this is like the craft that we will like, this is the path we have to go. I think we just were like, we just wanted to do fucked up loud music.
Yeah. So. And Mike and I have always been just obsessed with the Melvins. So getting it sludgy enough is good enough for me.
Yeah. So taking the more, it makes perfect sense. A bunch of art punks make some art punk, you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
That's all I know.
totally.
I didn't say that these questions were like the best questions in the world, by the way.
No, they're great.
But
one thing, the worst memory of that tour though actually has to be tied to what Benji had said. Mike wasn't clean that whole tour. None of us knew it. That was before we realized that like Worshiper, for me, Worshiper became synonymous with Mike's drug use, where it was like, hey, Curt, I'm writing a new Worshiper song. It took me a couple times, like after we'd take breaks, when Mike would come back and say, hey, I want to get the band back together. I'm writing some new material, for me to fucking realize that that was Mike saying, I'm on drugs right now. And it's taken me a long time to be like, I felt like I was enabling him for a long time. And I've like finally settled down into this world of like, it wasn't enabling. Like, it wasn't like we were going to a place where we're also buying drugs from, and like, this is all awesome, let's all do drugs. Like there was, you know, it was like, it's such like an emotionally muddy, difficult place to like live in. But Mike not being clean on that tour, and going back to those old guys not wanting the cops to, you know, shut down their space. As soon as we left that venue that night, we pulled out, we got out, we packed the van. There's a cop across the street just watching people come out of the show space. And I was like, oh, this will be great. And I didn't drink at all that whole night. And I was driving, and we packed up the van and we pull out of our parking space. Like it's like the cop was like T-boned to us, right? So we pull out and the cop pulls out, and then we make a left and the cop pulls us over. And so I'm like, all right. And this guy comes out. I'm not fucking kidding. This was the stupidest person I have ever met in my life. Like, I'm not trying to be mean. This guy was actually dumb. And like, he was like trying to be a hard on and like grilling me. I gave him my ID and he was like, oh, Curtis, huh? Like, he asked me like how I spell my name. He was like blown away that it has 2 S's on the end of it. Like, he was like asking me a fake ID. Like, he was trying all these weird tactics to like make me scared so that I would like fuck up and like whatever. But like, he was actually just like, I think there was part of his brain that might have just been missing. Like, it was so great. And halfway through our conversation, I realized this guy's a fuckhead. And I was just like, I was fucking with him. And it was like pretty fucking beautiful. That was one of the greatest moments of my life personally, to just like fuck with a cop and then drive away. But when we got home and months later, Mike got clean, and he confessed to me one day. We were just like drinking, like at a bar or something. And he was like, hey, remember that Worshiper tour? And I was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, you didn't know this at the time, but I had enough heroin to send us all away for a really long time. Like, he apparently came fucking, like we were, I don't know, moving to another state. Like, he brought it, and we had a chuckle about it, but I was like, fuck you, dude. Like, that was real fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, that is like the hardest part. Like, I've been on tours with people who are also addicted to heroin and opiates, and you know, you realize like they do bring a lot, and you think like, that's crazy, why would you do that? But then I've been there when they run out and they have to drive from Western Mass all the way to Philly overnight, you know. So it's a tough spot to be in, and it really is, you know, difficult, especially when you look back, when you don't realize it at the time, or you feel stupid, or you feel like you're enabling him, but you absolutely are not. You know, it's like just total reinforce the positivity there. Like, it was all Mike's choice, and I think we all know that. And like, now when you look at Mike, his life, and like him passing away last year, does it change kind of like how you view Worshiper? Like, because I know for a while too, Mike told me that Worshiper was exactly like what you said. Like, when he could only write songs for Worshiper when he was high, you know. But when I listen to it, that's not what I get from it. And like, knowing other people that do that stuff, it's, no matter, like, anything you like becomes an excuse to use, right? Like, oh, like this is my favorite video game, but I can only play it when I'm high. It's all the same sort of stuff.
Right.
But now that Mike has passed away, like do you think that your relationship with the music has changed? Or
Yeah. For me, worshiper, anytime we would practice, even when I realized that like it was like I'm writing a new worshiper song was code pretty much. It was still like I was so excited to do it, you know? Like I think also that's where a lot of my conflict came in, where it was like, this is going to be really hard emotionally, and now I know what's going on, but it's like still something that I really want to do. And it took me a long time to process that. And you're right, like the music's not about drugs at all. So what I've like sort of settled into is kind of going back to like what we were saying about how we never had any plans to actually play it live or record. I'm pretty sure what worshiper for Mike was the closest thing he was comfortable to doing in the realm of therapy, because knowing too much about Mike's life, there's a lot of trauma, and a lot of the lyrical content is very close to around where that trauma lies. And I think a lot of that was Mike codifying and obfuscating a lot of the things that he really wanted to tell people and really wanted to get out. He wanted to do that in that way. So the music matches how he's feeling, and all of the lyrics are, you know, revolving around these really, really hard times in his life that he is able to just actually get out. Like, and like when I, like for my birthday, I was like, can we please just fucking record this music? He was like, of course, you know, like, why, like, I don't know why I didn't think of that, you know, like, it was just like, he wanted it to be perfect. He wanted all of this like perfection. A lot of that is like control, I think, for a lot of that trauma as well. But in the end, I think that I went through a couple of weeks of like, I don't even know if we should fucking do this, or like, I didn't book my flights to Philly because I was like, I don't know how I feel about doing any of this. But sitting with it for a long time, I was like, even like the level of Mike's vocals in the new masters is up. Mike would have said, fuck you, turn it down. I don't actually want anybody to hear what I'm saying. But I'm like, dude, you're dead. You know, like in my head, I'm like, you're dead. And like, people, like, this is actually what you wanted. Like, you want people to fucking hear it. And now there's no repercussions. So yeah, I didn't go ape shit with it, but I was like, get it up there a little
Nudge
bit.
it up.
So
I'm very appreciative of the nudged up vocals, by the way. But
yeah, it was terrifying hearing it. Like, I've never heard Mike sing in the band. Like, we were all so fucking loud that I couldn't hear him fucking do it. And it's like, it's so gnarly. It's like real gnarly.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, like, you know, just thinking about this, you know, like record and like the lyrics more, and like, you know, Curt, I think you blew my mind when you explained the, you know, the band being like a proxy for his, you know, addiction in a way. And like, I think that the thing that is sort of a silver lining in some ways that I think, like, Curt, especially you, that he wanted to have more like open discussions about this. And I think that this was this way to be like, I'm making this art with my friends, and like, I can at least like hint at it and like kind of like, I don't know, express some of the, like the pain and, you know, stuff that he's gone through. And I feel like it's a totally different perspective. I feel like at first I was like, oh, he's like pulling in, like, you know, I didn't hear any of the lyrics like until they were printed out. And I'm like, and then I was like, oh, I get them. And then I was like, oh, it's just like, you know, like Charles Manson references and just like sick shit, whatever. But now I'm like seeing it with a totally different lens. It's a lot more autobiographical than I realized.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm probably, you know, when I talked to Mike about Worshipper, you know, he would say it was like, yeah, it was his most serious band, but, you know, Mike, he would say it with a smile or a smirk. So it's like, he never let you on to know like actually how heartfelt this music is, it has that sort of layers of irony or, Mike's defense mechanisms in there. But yeah, this is really so insightful, Curt. I mean, that is really, I think you're absolutely right. I never realized or thought about that in that way. That really is so yeah, I mean, gonna have to put up the lyrics basically on the back of the poster or something. Somebody's gonna have to write those by hand.
Sure. Yeah, they're all on the original one, the like side B thing, except for the Sleeping Witch. I could try to figure out what he's saying in that one, but I totally don't remember.
But even on the original, even on the original art, there, like, I just went through and wrote them out just so we'd have them, and yeah, even there, like, they all run together. It's kind of hard to decipher it. They're still hidden, a little cryptic,
Yeah.
making it tough for people,
Yeah,
but,
totally.
Yeah, I mean, while we're kind of going down this like old times talk about it, like, you three, you, Mike and Benji, like, you have known each other for so long, but like, I know a little bit about it, but I don't know a lot. So it's like, how did you really become so close with Mike, Benji, and Curt? Like, where did these relationships come from?
Totally.
You knew
I met
Mike longer.
That's correct.
You know Mike forever. I feel like
I'm dominating this interview.
No, you got to take this.
You just tell me to shut the fuck up. I met Mike when I was 14, I think. He was a friend of my friend Ted's. When I met him, he came over with Ted one night. Ted had a guitar and he loved the blues. And he would just sit there with a practice amp playing guitar in the new house that we just moved into in Flourtown, Pennsylvania. And Mike and I just like sat and listened to Ted play blues guitar forever. And I remember it not being fun at all, because that's not a fun thing to do, especially when you're 14. But I think we were high too, so that helps. But that's how I met Mike. And after the three of us hung out, Ted's parents came to go pick up Mike and Ted. And Mike said, "Hey, do you want to hang out tomorrow?" And I said, "Okay." And he's like, "I go to Springfield High School. I'll just start walking this way, and you can start walking this way, and we'll see if we meet up in the middle." And I was like, "That sounds like a weird plan." And we did. I walked like 3 blocks away, and I see somebody down the street walking towards me. And I was like, "Is that Mike? I just met the guy yesterday." And like, it wasn't like, "Let's hang out again with Ted." It was just like, he just was like, "Instead of Ted, let's me and you hang out." So I see this guy coming down the street, and he's wearing a paper hat. And when he gets closer, it's like a little naval cap that he made out of like lined paper. And it just said the word "fag" really big on one side of it. And I was like, "This is like my new best friend." And so then we were pretty much inseparable from that point on. Eventually, Mike's mom remarried and got sick of him. So that was like the story of Mike and his mom's relationship. But when he was 16, he moved into my home. So that's why we've always called each other brothers since then, because we were legally brothers for at least 2 years. My parents were his guardians. So yeah, that's pretty much how we met. And then we lived together. I had the garage pretty much is where I slept at my parents' house. So we just had music shit set up all the time, and we lived together. So we just like wake up and play music all day.
I recall that the garage was transformed into your room.
It's true.
So how did you meet Benji? How did you meet Curt and Mike?
So I feel like
stories.
All right. So Curt, you have to correct me if because like I don't know how much of this is true or not, but you had attended a show, and with Mike, perhaps?
No, with Joe Marlin.
With Joe, okay. At Was this at New Life or was this at the VFW?
It was at the place where Mike's memorial was.
That was
No,
what
no,
I
it was
thought.
downstairs. It was in the same room.
It was in the same room, which was like had such a kind of weird cyclical feel.
Yeah,
I feel like that didn't hit me while we were there.
I think it hit me like either then or like very soon after. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We were playing like my band, Nuclear Family Holocaust, NFH for short, which will be referred to as NFH from here on out. Was playing a show. Curt, I think you were there, and well, you were definitely there. I think you enjoyed it. We were.
Oh man.
I feel like similar to Worshipper, we were like the odd band out, where we were just like doing sort of like a weird, more extreme kind of like grindy punk thing, and playing with like ska bands or whoever, like whatever the local like, bands were.
Totally.
And we didn't really fit, but I think it was like at least different enough that like it would catch people's attention. And luckily it caught Kurt's attention enough for him to then figure out how to become friends with me and Rob.
It took so long. I just kept coming to their shows and like, it was just like that. We just like got there. Joe Marlin, we were like into like punk stuff or whatever. He was like this missionary kid from the church my parents went to, and he was like, "Come to this punk show with me." And I was like, "Okay." And I actually sat down. It's so funny. I don't think I would have been that attracted to NFH unless I just randomly sat down next to Rob and just started talking to him. And Rob was the fucking weirdest person ever. And so we just had the fucking weirdest conversation. And then he was like, I'll be right back. And he stood up and walked to the stage or the floor, where the bands are playing, wheels a huge bass cab out, puts on his bass, and you guys just play the fucking best grind like that Pennsylvania had seen to that point, in my opinion. And like, it was amazing. And then Rob just came back and we had like another weird conversation. I was like, I didn't even realize that you were playing today or whatever. And so, yeah, I just kept coming to his shows. And I was just like, I was very annoying, I'm sure.
Advantage of age, so that we were just like automatically like 2 years older or whatever, and like cooler because we had 2 years on you. But
so true.
I don't know, but there was something where I think it was like, all right, this guy's like, younger, he's a hanger on. Sorry to say, Curt. There was a moment, and then at one point, I feel like we went to go visit you at Sam Goody, where you were working at the Montgomery Mall. And
yeah, you finally gave me the NFH merch that I bought, like off your MySpace or something. I had to dog Rob for like 4 months, and he was like, "Fucking fine, I will bring it to you."
I feel like that was the turning point, though, where it was like we went out of our way to go see you, and then it was like, "Oh wait, Kurt's actually an awesome dude. We're so lucky that he was like a patient enough with us that we finally reciprocated." And
I forced this friendship. I'm proud to say that I forced this friendship.
I mean, that's so sick. Like, so Benji, did you grow up there too? Or, I mean,
yeah, I was, I think at the time I was living in Horsham, PA. So I went to Happer Horsham High School, which is down the road a piece from Flowertown. I feel like there was like a sort of a Glenside scene, like with the New Life Church, which was Kurt's church for a minute. They actually put on shows to lure kids in and convert them.
Real hand-handedly.
Did Chamomile play at that church? I remember, because I'm a little bit younger than you both, and when I first saw we just called it, like, I know that this was like pre-faux fetus, but for us it was like, oh, these are the faux fetus guys, right? It's like Jenkintown, Elkins Park, that kind of a scene. And like, for me, and people that are younger than me, like I'm always kind of surprised at who knows Faux Fetus and who doesn't, because
Me too.
what you'd think would, they're like, what is that? And then people like I would think are just like, oh yeah, I used to go to those shows and the VFW, wherever, you know what I mean? Like, so do you think that there was something in the water in that area at that time, or what? Like, were you just lucky? Like, you guys have both been in legendary bands. Both of you is pretty legendary. Like, why?
I want to give Curt a lot of the credit, honestly, for like giving the collective a name and like a kind of nucleus. I think that was super important, honestly, to just kind of be like, this group of people that are all doing stuff together have like a name and there's a thing to it. Like, I think without that, I don't know, probably would have been a lot different, honestly.
I actually have to thank Ted Kaiser, the guy that not only introduced me to Mike, he also introduced me to making websites. And so like I became extremely obsessed with, like, suddenly I was able to make the internet happen. And so I got very, very extremely obsessed with that. And the outpouring of all of that energy really became the Faux Fetus website, right? Like I figured out how to host all the music and everything like that. But it wasn't the real nucleus of don't print that, of Faux Fetus is Brian Reichert, who was older than me and Mike, but we were like really obsessed with his music. And so him and Marco Chirinos in the Barco project, they were like really the legendary weirdos, like straight out of Ween Pure Guava, put through like the worst recording setup, hyper annoying shit. And like, it was just awesome. Like as soon as you heard it, you were like, this is really great. All the songwriting is really awesome. And so we started hanging out with them, but it was like, I quickly realized that Brian had a band with Chris Dobkin, and then he had this other project and this other thing. And like, then Marco was doing stuff with other people. And it was really like their incestuous nature that was like hard to track down. And then I was like, wait, shit. Like, it's like, I started like piecing those things together, and then like making music with Brian, and then Mike and I were making music, and we all like sort of just started getting really incestuous. And so this all became like a place where it was like, it created like a flywheel, right? Like we put up an album, somebody else was like, shit, I want to put my stuff on there. Those two people would collaborate and make another album. Like it just fed itself for so long. Yeah. And then like random people would just get involved with it. And then, yeah, it was just nuts.
Yeah.
It was weird.
On Faux Fetus too much, but when you say random people like the OCs,
right.
Plus, that's pretty random. I know that. I think that we have to acknowledge the OCs contributing to Faux Fetus also because they were Mike's like favorite band. He's
totally.
And now, luckily for them, they're like massive, just all blown up. So, just wanted to not to name drop. We don't have to linger on it for too long, but just wanted to make sure that gets on record.
Totally.
Mike discovered the OCs before everybody else, right? Or the hospitals, right?
This definitely give it some search engine optimization oomph by dropping those terms in.
Yeah, especially if we say that Mike discovered the OC.
Yes, it's true. Mike invented Pink and Brown, the beginning of all of this.
I mean, Mike, he showed them to me, So
yeah,
all that that's my world. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Mike and I were obsessed with Providence music for super long. And like, it was just like, let's find out all their weird bands. Load Records was like huge. That was all thanks to Rob too, the bass player in NFH. It was like, it's all incestuous. It's like, I hear this from Benji and Rob, and then like, it infects Mike, and then we follow John Dwyer's entire career, and then it ends up like he gets really big, but before he does, he puts out the OC's record on Faux Fetus, and
All right. So we have about 10 minutes left, but there's only 2 questions, luckily. So we're almost off the hook. Now this is like the most important question, I think, which is top 5 metal bands. We'll start with Benji.
Yeah, Benji's got it written it down. So I'll start writing mine down.
Didn't really need to write it down because there's only 5 things. Top 5, and I don't think that these are in any kind of special order. But Pantera, I know that they're, kind of like, I don't know, maybe questionable, maybe problematic in many ways. But man, they're just, they made up groove metal, and I know that sounds bad too. Probably paved the way for new metal in a lot of ways, but the first few albums are amazing. Napalm Death is on the list. Just love them. I think that they didn't know how artful they were, but they were like creating some high art throughout their career, and then also some really actually like good metal a little bit in their mid period. I don't know what they're up to now, but I'm gonna guess they're still cooking. Slayer's on the list just because
has to be, yeah.
They have to be so good. Godflesh, maybe not like typical metal, but they're definitely in the metal category. Just dark stuff. And then the Melvins made the list, and I have to credit Mike and Curt for finally allowing me to appreciate the Melvins, because I don't think I was a true appreciator, but now I realize that they like are the best metal band. They have the best riffs, and they don't take themselves seriously, and I feel like it's the best. So thanks Mike and Curt.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well put, very well put. All right, Curt, top 5.
Is it of all time? Because then I fucked up. I would say top 5 in recent history, because Benji knocked out most of the
I took all time. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say Tomb Mold. I've been listening to a lot of Tomb Mold. Of Feather and Bone, I got into them because I worked with the bass player's cousin, and he was like, "You got to check out my cousin's band," and I was like, "What?" And so I was just like, "Oh shit, they're like a real fucking metal band, and they're fucking great." Portal is awesome. I know the guy wears a clock on his head. I think that's why I like them, because I wouldn't, but they're actually really good. The whole thing they got going on. They're like
his head?
Lovecraftian Gwar.
Oh, I don't know them.
Yeah, check them out. Their live shows are really bizarre. You're like, oh, what is this gonna be like you look at them and you're like, is this gonna be like Primus? Like it's just like visually does not link up with what they do. But I put Necrot on there. I play a lot of pinball to the first Necrot album. They're kind of more punky, but still, yeah, like in that weird between stage sort of thing.
I feel like anything up to like Crust counts.
Yeah, there's something else. Irish dudes. And Hyperdontia. I don't know if you guys have heard that shit, but oh man, it's like real scuzzy sounding 70s drums. It's real weird. They're weird. What's the album? Something of Teeth, obviously, but whatever. It's great. I think it's their first record.
Yeah, you'll have to send me a Spotify playlist, worshiper picks.
Oh yeah,
I'm soon. We'll post that up. We do a what are we listening to at for Strange Mono, so definitely do. Nice. Maybe for October we'll come up with 10 between the two of you that are good albums that you have to have or have to listen to. All right, sick, very sick. One more question, and it's a pretty easy one. So what do you think Mike would say right now to the people who just like wasted their time or took the time to read everything that I'm going to have to write from them? What do you think he would tell them?
Hail Satan.
Probably something around that.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
No refunds, right?
That's a tough question.
Death to pigs, always.
It would have to be something controversial, short and sweet, along those lines.
Yeah.
I mean, any party memories of you want to share before this time runs up? It's 3 minutes, 30 seconds. I really appreciate you guys being able to kind of hang out, talk about this stuff. I know it's weird. It's always strange to be like, hey, like, let's take this real seriously, but then, you know, tomorrow you just have to go back to work. Like,
I think one thing that I just realized like last night that jumped out at me is that the last track actually, like, and this also hints at some of the incestuous kind of music stuff, but I think Mike had said stuff to me being like, oh, NFH was like, you know, great, and maybe some stuff was inspired. But now I'm like listening to that last song and I'm like, there are parts that sound just like a couple of NFH songs, but he actually strung it together in a way that was like excellent, whereas we didn't really have the, I don't know, some kind of artistry, but he actually nailed it. And I'm like, that I'm listening back to that song, I'm like, there, he wrote the best NFH song and allowed me to play in that band. And I'm like, I'm really thankful that I had that opportunity. And that's incredible.
no, it's really,
I mean, that's why I was.
yeah, go ahead, Curt. Go ahead.
And that's like really, it was like Benji was like a no-brainer choice for the band. I think not at first, because I think we were like, I don't know why, Benji, I don't remember how you actually coalesced into it, other than we were just living together and just like did
I think I was just like,
everything. We worked and lived together, drank together.
The Riffingtons, that stuff so much that it was sort of like, I feel like I wanted to like be the impresario that was like, oh no, I can help you